Hey, it's Chris Schmidt with the Average Joe Sports Show. Time to talk holiday season in review.
Mitch Sherman here. Is Nebraska basketball for real? We'll go down a few rabbit holes.
Hi, it's Bill Doleman. Predictions for 2024. How about who will run college football one day?
It's Elijah Herbel here. More predictions. We'll get our predictions, maybe just our thoughts locked in for Monday night's national championship game. That and a whole lot more on the Average Joe Sports Show.
Welcome to it, episode 24, the Average Joe Sports Show. Mitch Sherman, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Find us and subscribe iTunes and Spotify for the podcast. Can also find us on YouTube, the AJ Sports Show, and the AJ Sports Pods, where you follow us on Twitter/X. Well, we made it through the holidays. Some of us are in different parts. Mitch, you're up the road. Billy D, you are down south, my friend.
Basking in the Florida sunshine minus the Florida heat. It's a little chilly outside, but yeah, I have escaped the wintry weather of the Midwest. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year.
We're into
Happy New Year.
2024, yeah, and got a college football playoff title game to talk about. A lot going on with Nebraska football and Nebraska hoops. But anyone have some hilarity with the holiday season? I know, Elijah, you got the mother of all hibachi stories to talk about. Elijah got invited to this private party that I'm pretty jealous of.
You're down in the hills in Phoenix. It was a nice place. Invited to hibachi. We told this story yesterday on the show because I had some explaining to do. On the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter account, I woke up on Saturday morning to find a video.
A white tiger in your bed?
No, luckily no. a video of there it is. It was if you're watching the video on YouTube, you can see it. It's a cooler full of sake being poured into my mouth at this hibachi dinner. And for some reason,
Mitch is a disappointed parent right now.
My half-awake, I guess, brain thought maybe
I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you.
Tweet this because at 6:30 in the morning, whenever I thought I was asleep, that video, which I'm the only person that had access to both that video and the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter account. I woke up to find that video was up on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter account and it had been up for 3 hours.
No tiger.
Like over
That's
2,
what happens.
Over
That's
2,000
what happens
views
if you
of the
get
video.
sake poured down your throat.
It was not good. They had like the water guns too, full of sake, like shooting across the table into our mouths. It was a lot of sake, and that's the consequence, I guess.
You didn't leave your buddy on the roof of Caesar's Palace or anything like that, did you?
No.
Did you run into a fella named Chow?
I did lose my friend on New Year's. All my friends. I had to Uber back to my buddy Brian's place.
That's what they want you to believe.
I have no idea where they went.
Mitch, anything exciting, crazy?
I got nothing that compares to the hibachi story. No, it was just I just completely lost track of the days from like December 22nd until it might still be happening. I'm trying to snap myself back into the I need like the shock paddles on my head just to get myself back into the right frame of mind. I still don't know what day it is, but I did see Nebraska basketball last night, and they tell me it was a Wednesday night game, and it looked like the Fred Hoiberg team from like March or late February of the past 2 years when they made their great run. So I'm just going to assume that we're about to experience our leap day. Somehow it became like
late February
20th right now. Yeah, because this Nebraska basketball team is not playing like it's January 4th, from what I saw yesterday at PBA on my television.
They were good. Went and covered the game last night, and good energy in PBA. Still that mad rush from the rail yard to PBA right before the anthem. Things fill up. Got to get your pre-last call shot or cocktail in, and then
sake.
Yeah, or sake, and then you get seated. And I love this year's crowd, and maybe Nebraska's had some ill scheduling with the officiating, but it's been interesting from time to time, and it's just an angry crowd. There's boos, there's hisses, there's some venom in the voice if something's going anti-Nebraska early, and Indiana started off just getting point-blank shots, but Nebraska just slowly built and kept growing a lead. They were favored by 5.5, 186-70, and what a performance by Tominaga in front of his folks. I love the intelligence of this team. I mean, they never panicked, and as much as some of us freaked out about the Minnesota loss, they have used that as a lesson coming out of every ball game since. Not only some clutch finishes against Michigan State, but Indiana's talented. They've got a ton of talent and height and athleticism, and Nebraska was the grittier basketball team.
Yeah, 4- and 5-star guys on that Indiana roster, and while they're underachieving, Nebraska's out there overachieving. I suppose you could say, although it's a talented roster, not to Indiana's level, but it's a talented roster for Nebraska too. I mean, I don't want to say I jumped off the bandwagon after the Creighton game with these guys, but I kind of said, all right, I'm going to take a break I'm not going to hype them up. Okay. No matter where they get over the next few weeks, I'm not going to get sucked into the hype. And then I went out and predicted at the end of the year in my annual 2024 predictions that I write on The Athletic that this was the team that would make it to the NCAA tournament. I didn't say they would win in the NCAA tournament. That would have maybe be going a step too far when you consider Nebraska's history. But I'm ready at this point to get excited about Nebraska basketball, and I am excited to see what they can do going on the road against Wisconsin on Saturday. Chris, did you get to see from like afar? Was there like a glow over the arena, the portion of the arena where the Raiolas were sitting last night courtside, or how did that? Does he have like Secret Service around him yet, or how does that work?
He's got a former Butkus Award winner sitting to his left.
Yes.
And he's got a former Wisconsin offensive lineman sitting to his right. There was a red glow with the stadium.
Yeah. You think it was the stadium or the fog?
Well, no, it was
might have been something else.
It was, Mystery Machine, Scooby-Doo, foggy / Exorcist foggy out coming to the PBA. And it was all sorts creepy, but it was still kind of cool. And then there's the red on the video board of a Memorial Stadium as you come in to help, be Rudolph's red nose tonight and make it through the fog. And then you get in, and you had a boatload of photogs there on the baseline before tip-off, taking shots of Raiola. And then you had Husker Vision. Yep, and paparazzi. And then you had Husker Vision show him right as the second half started, and the place erupted. And then they went back to him. Right, it wasn't quite Taylor Cam, but it every time they showed him, like twice, I think were the two cutaways on the video board. The place erupted. So
Did Trev stay with him all night?
I think they maybe scooted out once it got to 20. I'm not quite sure. I didn't have.
Yeah.
I did not have my PIs on that part of the arena, but no. I mean, he was seated next to him, and you had Trev talking with him, and Coach Donnie was in a good mood, and he was pretty much left alone. I was wondering if there was going to be Secret Service around him, but no, he had a good time. It looked like, but I was quite frankly watching the game more than Dylan.
Well, I would think that Trev is trying to hit him up for a donation because he's got to build that new stadium, and right when they implode the South. So
that was my
Dylan. We'd like to talk some business first, and then when it comes to Secret Service, I would think that there's about 15,000 Secret Service agents when Dylan walks into the arena, because everybody in that building outside of a Hoosier fan, it was wanting to make sure that kid is safe. Wow. So that might be the safest place for him to be. You don't need 2 or 3 flanking him or whatever. You got everybody in Husker Nation making sure that kid's going to be okay when winter conditioning and spring ball and fall camp open up. So I think he's pretty safe and secure at PBA or wherever he goes in town.
And my favorite tweet of last night was a picture of Trevin Dillon with the caption, "Hey, son, South Stadium's running up quite a tab. We're going to need some ball security next fall, all right?" That was my favorite tweet of the night. But
that's good.
Did you guys notice that? Continue, Mitch.
I liked the shots of Dillon as he left the arena with the Tominaga family. Mm-hmm. That to me, it's the two sports coming together. First of all, to have the Tominagas in town from Japan, and I believe it was international night at PBA last night because Rink Mast and his family. Mm-hmm. I thought I heard Hoiberg say that Rink Mast's uncle is 7'4". So that's an intriguing little piece of information about Nebraska basketball this year. And of course, we know that Keisei Tominaga's father is like pushing 7 feet. So the father-son game at PBA at the end of the year, the uncle-son game, is going to be a good one. But Dillon's he's getting into it and taking pictures with the Tominagas, and I like how before he's even enrolled in a class, he's just a signee. He's already in town helping recruit, and we'll talk about that later in this show. But it's cool to see the quarterback signee fly up from Georgia for a night to support the basketball team, and if there's any question about whether we're embarking on a new era of Nebraska football, and if it has begun, I think last night was the official start or the unofficial start. And, we'll get more as they get into mat drills and head towards spring practice. Two
quick points to make here. First off, imagine being like 7'3", growing up in the Netherlands, Rinkma's uncle, before the basketball craze kind of hit Europe. Like, what do you even do? Like, at 7'3", that's almost a disability in a culture that doesn't have basketball. Because what's the stat? Like, 10% of all people in the United States who are 7 feet tall have or will play in the NBA. Some absurd stat like that. It's crazy. I have to look up the exact number, but it's like 10%, which is crazy. Like, imagine being in the Netherlands, being 7 foot tall, and having no outlet, no basketball to go to.
Good thing there was Richard Van Polgeest to bust that door down.
There's a name. Now we've tied it all together with the Husker Hoops lore. I didn't know that basketball had just come to the Netherlands, but it's a new sport. They just discovered basketball.
Wasn't 92 kind of the Michael Jordan era, the era where basketball really took off in Europe? Like it was kind of around before that, but it really took off.
Yeah,
in
the
92.
dream team in Barcelona exploded, and then the NBA really do work in China before they stopped doing work in China. And Doleman, you were with the Rockets for a lot of years. I mean, you know how you've seen it grow when Yao was down there.
Oh yeah, it was a big deal, and it's still a big deal both in Houston and in his native China. But I remember when Richard Van Polgeest came to the Nebraska basketball program, and he was billed as the Michael Jordan of the Netherlands.
Danny Nee.
And when you stop to think about it, perhaps he was the Michael Jordan of the Netherlands, relatively speaking. Well, nice guy.
Clearly that's Rink Mast, and not Richard Van. It was foreshadowing. Yeah. This is what I expected we were going to talk about today, by the way.
But to quickly make my other point here and to get us away from basketball, did you guys notice just how big Dylan Rilo's winter coat was last night?
Well, he needed it. It was the kid, crap outside.
It's gonna get worse, dude. Like my advice to you: don't put on the thick winter coat just yet. Wait till it hits like negative degrees. Yeah, that's when you throw on the thick winter coat. Otherwise, you're just gonna be screwed once it gets down that cold. There's no layers you can put on at that point.
A brisk wind walking into that wind to PBA. About an hour before tip-off, and eyes were watering. I've turned soft. I need to move down with Doleman during this time of year, during the winter hiatus.
Dylan's going to be fine. He spent a lot of his formative years in Detroit, so he'll make it through.
Yeah. Who's going to be wearing the thicker coat? Dylan last night or Bill whenever he makes his return to Nebraska?
Oh, I'm tough. I can handle it. Come on now.
Fairbury, man.
Yeah, come on.
Average Joe Sports Show, episode 24. We're hitting Nebraska basketball. Subscribe to us. iTunes, Spotify, and the AJ Sports Pod is where you can go. On Twitter to follow us, the AJ Sports Show. On YouTube to watch, Mitch Sherman with The Athletic, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. To put a quick bow on basketball, though, Mitch, I think that's a healthy approach with not going all in on Nebraska basketball. I'll say this, they have shown me something starting with Michigan State. I'm interested to see what Wisconsin looks like. That's going to be a tough ball game just because of how much of a rock fight Wisconsin makes basketball. But Huskers have true matchup problems when you look at their shooting and athleticism between Gary and Tominaga for sure. But I really like what Bryce Williams is doing, man. He's been in such a great rhythm, and he's hit some key shots. There was a stretch there where they went about 3 minutes between made baskets, a couple of threes, and then you mix in a Sam Hoiberg 3 for 3 from the free throw line. So over the span of about 5 minutes of game time, you had 9 points. But Nebraska's defense was the equalizer. Indiana could get nothing going, really not a ton of rhythm. And then Tominaga absolutely just went off 18 of his 28 in the second half.
Yeah, I'm not expecting Nebraska to win at Wisconsin, but if it does,
how about Tuesday with Purdue? Whew.
Tuesday night against Purdue is going to be something else in downtown Lincoln. So we'll see.
Hey, I don't want to diminish what they did last night, though. I know it's an early season, mid-season game. I thought last night's game was one of the most impressive performances I've seen from a Nebraska basketball team, and maybe the most impressive in PBA. And I'm including sit-down Sunday. There's no sit-down Sunday.
Really?
No sit Sunday against Wisconsin. That was a game that you needed like a heroic Herculean effort, to win that game. That was just the circle on the calendar. They got to get this done, and let's get it done, and they did. So it's a game that'll be talked about forever. But when you're just talking about a pure X's and O's, 40 minutes of basketball, two teams against each other, I thought what I saw last night was just an incredibly impressive, dominant performance by a Nebraska basketball team that you don't often see. And this is, I don't want to diminish that because, look, you can say, well, Indiana's having – no, Indiana was, ranked. They're 10-3 going into the game. And Nebraska had a couple of, points where they, it seemed like, well, this is where Indiana's going to make its run. And, boom, they hit a big three. And it went from 8 to 11 again, then down to 8, I think maybe to 7. Then, boom, it's back up to 13. And they had every answer for Indiana throughout the game. What I thought was most impressive was the role definition that players play with is unlike anything I think maybe I have ever seen with Nebraska basketball. When you go back to the great Danny Need teams of the 90s, and that's relatively speaking, those were guys that could play just a fluid game of basketball, blacktop, hard court, wherever, right? But the definition of roles with Gary's great defense. He makes 2 or 3 game-changing defensive plays a game. May not result in a win, although for the last 25 games or whatever it's been, where Nebraska's 20-5, he makes a play. Tominaga, he's streaky, and if he's not hitting the 3, he'll hit the floater. Alec could be the senior vice president at Endicott Clay Products outside of Fairbury making bricks, right, when it comes to free throw shooting, although he did make a couple. But that guy plays so ruggedly hard that I don't know how many teams in the Big Ten have a player like him. Mast, he's coming around, I think. But I'm just and Wilcher, when Tominaga couldn't hit a 3, he's accepted that role that he's coming off the bench and his stroke is there. I just think that was as complete a basketball performance I've seen from Nebraska basketball in years. And I don't think it should be just like, well, that was a nice early conference season win. They may not win another game, okay? But the way they played last night definitely makes them a tough tournament team when they get that bid in March. I was really impressed by it.
And Mitch, we let off this segment, this conversation kind of by you saying you had to rub your eyes. It felt like it was last February, last March with how this team was playing. I might go back and say it finally looks like what Fred Hoiberg had at Iowa State. Not perfectly. It's not a like for like, but just in terms of role acceptance, how the offense plays, how swarming the defense is. It finally looks like the basketball team that we were promised whenever Fred Hoiberg was appointed as the head basketball coach. And it took years to get here, but it finally looks like that NBA spread them out offense with layups and three-pointers that we were promised, and a swarming defense. It finally feels like that.
I don't know that, and we'll get to football quick, but I don't know that there's been a coach at Nebraska in a major sport who's followed we follow closely, who you could say reinvented himself in more of a way than what Fred Hoiberg has done from his philosophy on building a team at the beginning of the time that he got to Nebraska. I was at the Metro Conference Holiday Tournament in Omaha on the Saturday before New Year's, so December 30th. And Fred was in the gym at Creighton Prep, sitting at the top, taking it in, and he was at a game where there wasn't really a scholarship-worthy player, at least not at this point in his career, on that court. Earlier in the day, Amari Bynum from Omaha Bryan was playing, but it wasn't the previous game. And Fred is just there because he wants to be a part of the Nebraska basketball community. Now, I mean, there are some other factors, and there were things about that game between Gretna and Papio South where, there may have been reason for him to be there. Jordy Ball's little brother was playing, and I think he's a Division I prospect, Bryson Ball, but he's a junior, and he certainly, isn't. I don't think he's playing in the Big Ten right now, unless he grows a couple inches. But you didn't see Nebraska basketball have a presence at stuff like that. He wasn't even on the map when Fred got to Lincoln, and you had Matt Abdelmassi, and nothing against him. He's got his way of recruiting, and he was from New York and had a way of building a team, and they are so different from that kind of a mindset now. I mean, you're not going to build your team with Nebraska kids. I get it, but just understanding what it takes to win in this state, in this conference, at this level, it has changed so much in the years that he's been here. Not many coaches get that opportunity, are shown that kind of patience from an athletic director and from a school. So we'll see where this all takes Nebraska, but Trev Alberts is looking wise at this moment for having that kind of patience with Fred Hoiberg because of the product that he appears to be putting on the court here early in 2024. So again, not to get too excited, but if they beat Wisconsin, I'm going all in and just putting them in my Final Four. And
Schmidt, you talked about first of all, when you said Metro Conference, I thought you were talking about Darrell Griffith in Louisville. But anyway, right. when you said the crowd is a little more agitated this year, I think it goes back to the Purdue game last year when Nebraska outplayed them. That was one of those games where they outplayed them. And that heroic effort, Herculean, and they just couldn't get it done. But it was that where they had that one performance, right? I think they can have lots of performances like they had last night. But that call at the end of last year's Purdue game, I still think has people agitated at Big Ten officiating. More so than they ever, they always are anyway. Everybody just hates the officials. But that one particular play, I think, is stuck with them for a year. And, they may be replaying that for the next couple of days until they come to town. But
And you mentioned Purdue, Bill. I'll just throw it out there. Over the past 3 seasons, felt like Purdue has struggled with Nebraska more than they should have, given Nebraska's conference ranking, how they've been doing in the conference. Always feels like that matchup between Purdue and Nebraska has been closer than it should have been. I'm just throwing it out there.
Setting it up for a court storming on Tuesday night. By the way, last thing. Sit down Sunday. That was the Creighton game this year at PBA.
well played. Yeah. Here's a 30 spot. Enjoy your drinks. That's Mitch Sherman with The Athletic, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, The Average Joe Sports Show, episode 24. College football playoff title game set for Monday. The old Big Ten, the new guard, the soon-to-be Big Ten Washington Huskies. And what a
rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
It does. What a semifinal, though, we got. The rest of the bowl season, very forgettable between opt-outs and blowouts and who's sitting out, who's playing their third-team quarterback and scoring 3 points. I mean, it was just a nightmare for the Bulls. Here comes the Superman cape with the playoff. And what a semis we got. And now we fast forward to Monday. And Michigan just keeps on, man. Keeps on keeping on. Just vintage trench work by the offensive and defensive line of Michigan. The Michigan defense against Bama's offense was a clinic. And then Washington kind of screwed around and made it a little closer. We even got one more second for Texas to try and pull off an all-time moment. It was knocked away, and the state of Nebraska thanks the defensive back for Washington for coming over the top. And
what a play!
Yeah, that was great, and there was no flag, which was there shouldn't have been, but
right.
You never know. But
the right call.
What do you guys think Monday night? What do you kind of size up here with this showdown here? Kalen DeBoer, I smile, man. I remember covering him and seeing his Sioux Falls teams drop $1 billion on Nebraska Westland. There was no running clock, 3.5 hours of let's fill because it was not a close ball game. But he has climbed the ladder, deservedly so, and he's got a special group of Huskies.
Are they going to have? Did you guys see Jim Harbaugh's parents interviewed after the game on New Year's Day?
I heard about his dad talking about how it's been a good year for the Harbaughs.
You got to go find the video with his mom and his dad. They are both all time. It was an all time classic interview, and I want to know Monday night. I care about the game, and I want to see if Tony Petitti is going to raise the trophy with Washington, if the Huskies win, or if he'll let the Pac-12 and George Kliavkoff is he going to the game?
He's in witness protection, isn't he?
Does he wear Husky gear at the game? But what I really want to see is like a camera on Jack and Jackie Harbaugh the entire game, because they stole the show. Despite those two amazing games, they both came down to the last play, with Bama and Texas losing on the last play of those semifinal games. I thought Jack and Jackie stole the show, and it really just answers a lot of questions for me about Jim and how Jim Harbaugh became Jim Harbaugh.
Well, when you mentioned the interview, I know that he's kind of got the black hat of college football. I find Jim Harbaugh endearing, and he's obviously quirky, but when they do the post game, because of this, when they do the post game interviews with him, I think it was Reese Davis in this case asked him, Jim, in the second half, what were you able to do to turn things around and get your offense going? And then what were the play calls in overtime, or whatever the case might have been? And he says, well, first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. And it's great here. Love being in the Rose Bowl, and walks right off. Says, talk to this guy right here. It's just become this accepted thing that you're going to ask him a question, and he's like the antithesis of Greg Popovich, who is angrily not going to tell you anything. Jim Harbaugh will somewhat boyishly, endearingly say absolutely nothing and just walk away, and it's accepted. I just find that really, really amusing that he never really answers the question. Happy New Year, everybody. Well, yeah, Jim.
If he wasn't such a I don't know. If he wasn't such an odd bird, I would say that he's doing this on purpose. That he's trying, like he's playing a game with himself to try to answer nothing. Even at the press conferences, like there was a CFP press conference this week to preview the championship, and there were reporters who were tweeting out his his answers to real questions where he was just saying nothing. And you're right. You can see that in the post-game interviews, and it's not just in the semifinal on Monday night, there were just more people watching that. But even in the regular season, like they beat Maryland, and he's standing there with J.J. McCarthy or Blake Corum, and the sideline reporter comes up and they ask Jim a question, and he gives some answer that has nothing to do with the question. And then he just says, talk to this guy. And he just runs off. He does it every game. And you see the look on the side, the poor sideline reporters' faces, and they're just disgusted. They're like, no, you're the story. We want to talk to you. You're the guy who's been suspended for half the season. And it's just not going to happen. And he's never going to pull back the curtain and let you inside and into what's going on. I mean, maybe he'll have a sit down with Marty Smith or something that airs on Monday afternoon ahead of the final. Who knows? But the Chargers or the Raiders or the Bears, whoever gets him next year, their media and their fans are gonna get the opportunity to enjoy that.
I find it amusing. And look, Kalen DeBoer, you're right. Schmidt is fantastic. And had Matt Rule not gotten the job in Nebraska, that should have been target number 2 without question. Classy guy, wonderful guy, humble, runs a wonderful program. But the personality in that game on Monday night, that's all belongs to Michigan. There's no question about it.
Harbaugh is just quirky is the word. He's his own, rhythm section, right? He's the same guy that one year shows up at media days, coat and tie, and Michigan hat, baseball cap, in cleats. The first time I've seen him in
were cleats to media days, did he?
Yes, he did.
Okay, I missed that. Wow.
I think it was the first year in Indy when they had it at Lucas Oil.
It was so he could get away from reporters faster.
Well, he didn't have the gloves on.
It's on a football field. So.
Yeah, he didn't have the gloves, but I mean, he wears cleats on the sideline, right? He's taking snaps. I mean,
pregame he does.
Yeah, and he's that's just him. It'd be great to just sit down and again the glimpse of Harbaugh I got at media days was him talking Hootie and the Blowfish and Alanis Morissette. It was a pop culture interview that he was having a good time with, but he doesn't do more than he has to, right? I mean, he doesn't do he'll do the podium and then he'll do the big podium, but that's about it. So he's just Jim if you talk to folks who've covered him in Michigan or know folks who have. And I don't know, Mitch, how much time you've been around him, but he's his own section of personality in a sport that's had a lot of great personalities. The guy can coach too, by the way.
Yeah, I just have a hard time. Like, I'm amused by him, but I have a hard time, separating all of that in this season.
Sure. Unfortunately
for Michigan, from the mess that they made themselves and how they just continue to act like it's not a big deal or it didn't happen, or 80% of college football is, as McCarthy said this week, steals signs, and how Michigan did it just because they had to catch up to Ohio State, which was quite a vicious slap at the Buckeyes. But I don't know. They're the villains, and it was really interesting to watch the dynamic, like the fan dichotomy in that Michigan-Alabama game, because nobody outside of Alabama can really bring themselves to root for the Tide because they're just the big bad, beasts of college football and have been for 15 years with Nick Saban. But then you put them up against Michigan, and I think there were more people who were just torn. Like, I don't think people could even bring themselves to understand who they were cheering for the majority of that game. And you just kind of had to go with your heart and I don't know who I want to win, but whatever emotions come in, I'll just go with it. Yeah, I found myself, just trying to be completely, put myself in the fan seat in that game. I was watching it at home, and with no work assignment on my plate. And, I did find myself late in the game, kind of pulling for Michigan. And I think, and I don't know why, but I think the reason was because I just didn't want this wild story of a season to end for Michigan. I wanted it to go one more game so we could see what Monday night is going to bring. Whether it was against Texas or Washington, it's now we get Washington. It's there's a lot of drama there. And we get one more week of Jim Harbaugh and the whole circus that is this season for the Wolverines.
I can't lie, Mitch. I'm kind of with you. Like, leading up to a game, I really do like how Michigan plays the game of football. I love their offensive line, love their running backs. Their defense hits hard. They fly around. I love how Michigan plays the game of football. I'm like all last week, I kind of want Michigan to beat Bama. And then pregame happens, and you look at it, and they're wearing the "us against everybody" shirts. You have J.J. McCarthy doing his breathing on the goalpost, trying to calm himself down, and everything about it makes these freaking goofballs. I could never root for these guys. And then the game starts, and I watch them play football again, and I go, no, they are really good, though. I think I got to pull for Michigan against Washington. As much as I love DeBoer, as much as I love Penix, as much as I love that offense, there's just something about how Michigan plays the game of football that resounds with me. It just feels very much like if you sat down an NFL player from the 1960s and 1970s, flipped on the TV and showed him Michigan, they'd get it right away. I mean, it's not complicated football. It's a classic brand of football that has always worked. Whenever you throw it on the TV, you just go, man, they are good and fun to watch, despite the fact that they're not explosive. It's that weird mix of being fun to watch while still being very classic and very throwback that makes me want them to do it, just because, I think college football would be better if there was more Michigans out there as opposed to Washingtons.
Mitch, you mentioned Marty Smith and Jim Harbaugh. They did have the sit-down before that semifinal game, and Marty Smith asked him about what happened during the course of the season and the suspension and all that. And Harbaugh gave an answer where he said, well, as you know, I'm not allowed to talk about that. And I'm like, why not? You're the one that got in trouble.
Talk about it?
Yeah, well, he said, I'm not allowed to talk about it. Like, well, I don't think that was ever part of the deal. I think you had to sit for a few games, but I don't think there was some gag order, handed down by the Supreme Court that said you can't talk on the issue. But he completely dodged it. So maybe they'll get a round two before the game on Monday night. I agree with you, Elijah. I like the way they play. I think that, that's old school football, and maybe they should be playing in black and white as opposed to color TV. But I root for interesting. Mm-hmm. So when the two black hats go against each other, you just root for interesting. And I think that we got that certainly in the Rose Bowl, and got it in the what was it, the Sugar Bowl that they played in? Oh yeah, it was the Sugar Bowl because of ESPN's return, and they got the live shot of Mardi Gras. But anyway,
that was nice.
Yeah. So, so just
understated, Mitch. That was nice.
just root for interesting,
I think everyone in America had the same reaction. Nice.
I think what Harbaugh meant by he's not allowed to talk about that is that Ward Manuel they have Michigan athletic director put a big sign in his office that said, "You are not allowed to talk about the suspension from this year." And Jim sits there when the door's closed in his office and he looks at it all day. So when the question gets asked by the media, he said, "I'm not allowed to talk about that."
Well, that one Anchorman scene? It's probably like that with Ward Manuel behind the camera, but instead of having signs that say "Do not smoke crack," it's "Do not talk about this scandal." He doesn't know which Anchorman scene I'm talking about.
Where they get arrested. Can't do it on TV. Who knew? It's the Average Joe Sports Show, episode 24. Find us Spotify and iTunes. Download, subscribe, and tell a buddy. Also, the AJ Sports Pod is where you find us on Twitter/X. AJ Sports Show can watch the video portion. Subscribe to it on YouTube. We've hit the playoff. Real quick prediction. I think Michigan's going to win. I think Michigan's too strong, but I'm polling for Washington. I want DeBoer. I kind of like the Midwest guy from South Dakota, spending a year of my life up there, and just really love his story, and I'm excited Washington's coming to the Big Ten. I think the additions are going to be a lot of fun, which kind of leads us, guys, if you want to throw a prediction in for Monday, go for it. But the 2024 forecast, because I know, Mitch, you did some work on that and also caught up with Nick Henrich as well, Nebraska linebacker who recently retired.
Yeah, my prediction is Michigan. I will say with the caveat that if Michael Penix gets hot like he was for a good chunk of that game against Texas, there's not much that any defense can do. Michigan's going to have to get to him and make him uncomfortable, and I think they will.
They will. Yeah.
I don't think Washington's faced a defensive front like what Michigan's going to throw at them, and they've seen Penix before,
Sure.
the former Indiana QB. So not that you need to. You can turn on the tape and watch what he's done at Washington this year, and it doesn't matter if you faced him before. But there's some familiarity there on the part of the Michigan coaches for sure. And I think they'll find a way to make him uncomfortable, and Michigan wins the game, and Harbaugh rides off into the sunset, and we never see him again in the Big Ten.
I think Michigan probably wins it, but again, I just hope it's interesting. I think Michigan has so many weapons offensively with Corum. I think McCarthy with his ability, as accurate and as fun to watch as Penix is, McCarthy can put it where he needs to put it when he has to put it there. He may not be as dynamic of a thrower as Michael Penix, but boy, he sure is efficient. And I think he's a great quarterback to watch. They have, receivers who are good. They've got an offensive line that's big, and I think they just move the ball and control the clock. And I think they'll probably win it. I think it'll be a big stage moment for Washington that might be a little too big for them. Even Sarkisian talked about the Sugar Bowl that Texas had jitters and nerves that affected them. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's true. But if it was, I think that might be the case for Washington in that game.
I mean, for as much as college football has changed in the past decade, 20 years, 30 years, it's still a game that is won along the lines of scrimmage. And Michael Penix has been flashy. He's been a trump card all year long for that Washington team. But as Schmidt kind of laid out, if that Michigan pass rush can get home, they can get some corner blitzes going that Penix doesn't see. That could be the trump card for Michigan in this football game. So that's the way I see it, is whoever wins the lines of scrimmage, which I think right now most likely going to be Michigan with how well they run the football, with just how monstrous their defensive line is, with the complexity of their blitz packages. I don't see Washington winning along the lines of scrimmage. If they can make it even on lines of scrimmage, I can see Washington with their high-powered offense being able to put up some points and maybe beat Michigan, but I really don't see their offensive line or their defensive line holding up in a four-quarter battle against Michigan. They might have their moments, but for that reason, football being won and lost along the lines of scrimmage, I think Michigan wins this football game, and you've seen it in multiple college football playoffs. I mean, last year, Georgia, their lines of scrimmage dominated TCU. Alabama a couple years ago in that COVID-shortened season against Ohio State, their lines of scrimmage really, really did well, and then gave Tua time, and Tua was able to pick apart that Ohio State defense. Ohio State really couldn't get their rushing game going. They couldn't stop the Bama pass rush. It's been a game that, despite all the changes, is still about physicality, offensive line, defensive line. Michigan's better there. I got Michigan winning on one Monday night. I hope it's a close football game. I'm not convinced it's going to be. I think it's probably going to be Michigan by 2 touchdowns, maybe 3.
I think that 13-point number's
about
fair,
right,
and
yeah.
I think that's not the line, but it's going to be a turnover that makes things a little more comfortable for Michigan as we roll on here with the Average Joe Sports Show.
Breaking news at the Sherman household.
Yes, that's all good. Mitch is being a good pet papa, but
here's what looking ahead though. Here's what I'm happy about, that next year with the expanded college football playoff, that there won't be any controversy. That we will get without question the best 8-4, 9-3 teams in the playoff. That there will be no delineation between. No blurring of the lines between, say, 9, 10, 11, and 12. They'll be far better than 13, 14, 15 through 30. So no controversy next year in college football. Everything is going to be solved with the expanded playoff, without question, right? I mean, we're not going to have any problem. We'll have players who will play in all of the games. There will be no opting out, all of that. So I'm just glad that college football has its problem solved going into 2024.
Have you guys made your mind up with the direction you're going to go pre-spring Nebraska? I mean, have you took a gander at the schedule yet? I know we've got portal kids we can touch on. Let's hit there. Got a handful of wideouts, and you've got about 3 linebackers. Let's go there before we talk 2024 predictions and we get out. But Nayor, the Wyoming standout that got hurt at Texas. You've got Banks, the Wake wide receiver. And then, of course, Dowdell. Man, talented running back that could be really nice for the Nebraska running back room. And Alexander and Thompson, the linebackers that are also slated to check in this weekend. And you know what? I think Nayor's, if he can stay healthy, that 6'4" frame really did great work for Craig Bull. Was all Mountain West, got hurt at Texas. Banks is also nice. I like what Nebraska's trying to do, assuming they land one or both, where you mix some experience from the portal with a really talented young group of receivers that I thought showed up in some really nice moments for Nebraska last year, despite some up and down quarterback play. So it'll be a big weekend. I think if you get Dowdell at running back, you pair him with that room. It's really nice. He's got a great combination of size, but also has that extra gear and gets up to speed pretty quickly.
Yeah, I sense some sarcasm, Bill, with your comments about the
very thick
playoff next year. Well, I heard that while I was tending to matters with the pup here. So talking portal, Nayor is an intriguing prospect for sure. Schmidt, like you mentioned, with his size and his production at Wyoming, you do have to have a little bit of concern because of the ACL injury that he had at Texas, but that was in 2022, and then he didn't get to make the kind of impact that he wanted with the Longhorns this year. Great receivers in Austin, so I don't think that's necessarily by itself a reason to be worried or a red flag. But all of these guys are in the portal for a reason, and it always looks from the outside like everybody's a slam dunk coming in. The bottom line for Nebraska with these visitors who are in town as we speak, or on their way out of town or on their way in the case of Dowdell, who will be here on the weekend, is that Nebraska needs help at those 2 offensive skill spots to be able to put weapons around the quarterback, presumably Dylan Raiola as a true freshman, and relieve some of the pressure from him so that you're not asking him to be the ultimate playmaker in this offense. And you can allow him to be a distributor and a facilitator. When he's a junior and, he's on draft boards and he's up for the Heisman Trophy, we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. Then you can ask your quarterback to do more. But right now, coming in, he's going to need more pieces around him than what Nebraska has going into the spring, which is what makes this week, this little short window before the dead period resumes on Monday, so critical for Nebraska in building out its roster, its offensive roster for 2024. So, if you get Banks and Nayor, that would be, and it's possible that Nebraska's only planning to take one. If they're in the market for 2 and they can get that, then you've really remade your wide receiver room, and you can allow Malachi Coleman and Jalen Lloyd and Jaden Doss and Demetrius Bell to go back into positions where they are just continuing to learn and playing complementary roles until they become upperclassmen. And at running back, Nebraska's an injury or so away from not being able to play a spring game with the way the situation is at running back right now, or at least, having walk-ons as the starting backs. They're an injury away from that. So Dowdell, if he can be a mid-year guy and start school here later in January, spring practice is not the goal here, but it would be essential to get him mixed into that room so that when camp comes in August, you're ready to roll with that guy in the event that Gabe Ervin and Ramir Johnson aren't back to the kind of health that Nebraska needs them to be at in the next season.
Now you might have running backs with green jerseys on in the spring game, because and then we talked about this last year that in all likelihood you're not going to see Ramir Johnson and Gabe Ervin competing in the spring, other than maybe light workouts here and there, but certainly not contact.
Not scrimmaging.
Right. So that's not going to happen. So if you can get, a quality back in here that's going to be a primary back in your offense, it would be very significant for Nebraska to get him in here ASAP. And I wonder too, since the semifinals, are there other players that are on the board for Nebraska? I mean, like Georgia and Alabama combined, don't they have like 20 players have gone into the portal in the last 24 to 48 hours? That's what's crazy about this portal.
Alabama had 9 on Tuesday going to the portal, Tuesday and Wednesday. So it's a whole new batch of potential talent. And there were others from teams that played in the New Year's Six games. Like there was a 1,000-yard receiver from Liberty who went into the portal.
And their quarterback.
This week. Yeah. So Nebraska may not be done. There's still time as we see Bill basking in the Florida sun. There's still time before the spring semester starts academically for these guys to get to campus, even though you have this 4-day window to visit, and then it's going to close up, and then it'll open again after the convention next week for players to come back. It's not the clock is still ticking on the potential to bring in players. So I don't think just because this weekend seems to be a big fire drill with 5 transfers coming in on visits that's the end of it. You may still have some prospects in town in mid and even into late January.
See, and that's more like it, Mitch. Your concerns are well founded, but I think you guys are getting ahead of yourself because based on the schedule, this time of year is for drinking the Kool-Aid, January through March. Those concerns, they're supposed to come up in spring football, and then you see it in the spring game and you get really concerned, and then through the summer you downplay the spring game and say, well, it's just a glorified scrimmage, it doesn't mean all that much, let's wait for fall camp.
Bueller looked great though.
Yeah, see, that's it perfectly. And then you get to Big Ten Media Days and you've drank the Kool-Aid again, and then the coaches and the players, they give you a little more Kool-Aid to drink, and then fall camp starts up and the concerns, like you guys you're getting ahead of yourself with concerns. I think right now is for drinking the Kool-Aid and only drinking the Kool-Aid.
Which leads us into your 2024 predictions. What playoff matchup will Nebraska be in, Elijah?
I think Nebraska is Florida State.
5-12
game. Yeah,
5-12.
They're the 5.
Mm-hmm. Right, of course.
I shouldn't even have had to mention it, Mitch. But you did some 2024 prognosticating.
I did, yeah. It's always a popular piece. People want to know what some idiot up here thinks is going to happen in 2024. So
not an idiot, an average Joe.
Right, there you go. Let's stay with the brand. Yeah, I made a bunch of predictions about Dylan Raiola, that he would come out of the spring as the clear number 1 quarterback. I made some predictions about things that did not involve football. Talked about some no-hitters that I think Jordy Ball is going to throw. That's the second mention of Jordy Ball on this podcast. I made a prediction about the offensive coaching staff. So we can talk momentarily about that and how there have been no moves that have been announced by Matt Rule or no hires made yet that would indicate shifting on the offensive side. But are we all in agreement on this panel that Nebraska's coaching staff is going to undergo some kind of change between now and, say, February 1st?
I think so. And, I mean, I think the obvious change or addition is probably a better word somehow, some way, either via analyst or on-field coach, is to, all right, you feel great about the quarterback you just landed. You feel great about the other quarterback you landed from Bell West. You feel really nice about what kind of a character guy you have in Heinrich Harburg. Those are your three names right now that are your quarterback room for Nebraska. And I'm sure I'm leaving out some walk-ons or some other guys, but it's not intentional. You need to make sure that you don't, for lack of a better term, you talk to coaches, don't screw them up, right? I mean, you have some talent entering in. There is some raw talent with Harburg, as he's somebody that is, got size and physicality, so there's a role for him at quarterback with some packages he talked about with our friend Doug Duda. So, listen, make sure you get the right guy that can make this guy reach his ceiling. And you got to ask yourself, do you have that on the coaching staff right now if you're Nebraska? And if you don't have a resounding yes, you go get that addition.
Well, we are in the second window of the coaches transfer portal. The first transfer portal is after the regular season is over with and the hires are made and the new staffs are assembled. And now you're into that second window when coaches are looking for jobs, and you're at the coaches convention time of year, which is basically one big job market. And then you also have, as people have also been speculating, well, we've got to wait till the NFL season is over too, which kind of overlaps a little, not really overlap, but it coincides with the coaches convention because the NFL season will end. And I think that's what people have kind of been waiting for around Nebraska, to see what kind of move Matt Rule is going to make. But this is the next transfer portal. They just got to figure out what kind of NIL money they can give a prospective coach, if you will.
Yeah, speaking of money to coaches, one of the other predictions that I did make for 2024 was that Tony White, by the end of this calendar year, will get a head coaching job. So not too controversial there. I think we all saw the writing on the wall as he entertained some possibilities in December of 23. But his defense, more to the point, this next season has a likelihood, I would say, of being better and improving upon what Nebraska did in what was a landmark year statistically for the Black Shirts this season. With just 5 wins, it's sometimes hard to see it that way. And, we're not saying that Nebraska went up against a gauntlet of incredible offenses in the Big Ten West, but nonetheless, you play the teams that are in front of you. And statistically, you look at the rush defense, you look at the yards per play allowed. There are things Nebraska could have done better, but it was a very good defense, and I think it can be better. And the way I forecast it, that's going to lead to Tony White having an opportunity after next season to take over his own program.
Which means your offense, fast forwarding, needs to be complementary to what you got coming back defensively. And then it needs to be in high gear if you're having to break in, presumably, a new defensive coordinator.
Yeah. You start looking at 2025 and the challenges that Nebraska is going to face then, and that's down the road. Mm-hmm. They should. My point is that Nebraska ought to enjoy Tony White while it has him, because he's going places, I would say, in a way that Nebraska's not had the luxury to enjoy with its assistant coaches in recent years. The pay raise to $1.6 million that he received in December is an indication that Matt Rule and Trev Alberts feel the same way.
All right, I'm going to throw this out there as a prediction. I think there's going to be a major resignation or retirement, that somebody is going to step aside and become the de facto sort of commissioner of college football. And it's going to be somebody with gravitas that is going to be well respected. Lou Holtz will not get the vote from the Ohio caucus, but nevertheless, I think somebody will. Chip Kelly is the one who basically said what we said on the Average Joe Sports Show 20 years ago. But nevertheless, thanks for joining us. But I think that there will be somebody with a loud voice that is well respected, that sees the opportunity, A, for himself, but B, for the better good of the game, that somebody has to step in there and try to get college football corralled and on a healthier path than it is right now. I don't know if that's Nick Saban.
Bob
I don't know if
Stoops.
that's
Sounds
Chip
like a
Kelly.
job for Urban Meyer.
I doubt that, but I think that somebody is going to take.
You're talking about Brian Ferentz?
Hey, and by the way, congratulations to Iowa for that homage to their 2023 season with their performance in their bowl game. You can't spell Iowa without zero. But anyway, I think somebody will assume the mantle of the leader of college football. And I'll also throw this up. Maybe it won't be a football coach. Maybe it's somebody like a Mike Krzyzewski, who's known for their leadership capabilities, that might be somewhat of a respected sage. I don't know. But, I just see somebody taking the mantle to get college football coaches united to get the game on a healthier path than it's on.
Bob Stoops is young enough to
Oliver Luck. What's Oliver Luck doing these days?
Give me
Andrew Luck. That's why he retired. I mean, he's a smart guy.
Okay,
give me Bob Stoops. He's young enough.
Schmidt,
Bob Stoops is young enough still to come in and be that college football conference commissioner.
Is he like? I don't know. Does he
still
have that kind of
XFLing or
creative qualities about him? Is he that type of a leader? I mean, great leader on the sideline and a fiery guy. I'd look. I'll entertain any options, but what about a guy more like Bob Stoops' old boss, Joe Castiglione? I mean, that would be
could be.
That would be something that would make sense. Is to take a high-level athletic director who's been successful and been around this sport for a long time in various roles and didn't win the Butkus Award in 1993. Didn't just get an extension from Nebraska. No, I mean, Trev Alberts is probably not going to be the commissioner of college football, but somebody like Castiglione or a highly respected AD.
Bill Byrne would be great if he was not well advanced in retirement.
Yeah.
something to chew on.
That's a good thought.
I would love, and it's no longer possible, but the late, great Mike Leach, would have loved to see him run college football. That would have been a whole lot of fun. Before we get out of here, guys, my quick prediction over the next 12 months. I think Nebraska finally breaks the streak. I don't know even how long it's been now, but they get their first-team all-conference performer during the 2024 season. I look at that defensive side of the ball, particular at Nash Hutmacher, Ty Robinson. Those two are great candidates. I think Nebraska gets their first-team all-conference performer since, I believe, 2014. Is my number off there?
Is that Spencer Long?
Spencer was a 2013 guard.
Randy Gregory was who I was thinking.
Yeah.
Didn't he get first-team all-conference honors?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, something to think about. I'm gonna stick with my Stoops card, but I like the Castiglione take from the administrative.
Bill Moose
standpoint.
is available.
Moose, is it calving season? Is the question. Love the Moose. Love the Moose. Bill Doleman, Mitch Sherman with The Athletic, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. That'll put us to bed for episode 24 of the Average Joe Sports Show, Spotify and iTunes, where you can hear us in the AJ Sports Pod. Find us on Twitter/X with that handle and subscribe to the YouTube channel, the AJ Sports Show. We'll talk to you next time.